All right, it's January 19th, 2025. A new poll just dropped showing Joe Biden will be leaving office as the most unpopular president in American history. We're going to show you why. Also, why in the world did Mike Johnson help perpetuate the White House cover-up of Biden's well-being? Crazy story which broke yesterday makes you want to trust Mike Johnson even less, which is hard to do. And Donald Trump reportedly changing his inauguration plans again after more potential threats surface. And why he moved the inauguration indoors in the first place had nothing to do with the temperature, which a lot of people keep saying. We're going to explain. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel, and consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. CNN is reporting that Joe Biden will be leaving office as the most unpopular president ever in American history. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is at the apex of his power and popularity, more popular today than at any time over the last 8 years, growing his base and broadening his appeal. In a recent Harvard-Harris poll from January 15th, check this out. Trump had a +7 approval rating. That is exceptionally good, while Joe Biden is in the gutter. In fact, Biden's popularity and approval rating is lower today, leaving office, than Donald Trump's was after January 6th. Think about that. Think about how the media, the entire media, the basically entire Republican Party, the entire Democrat Party, the whole U.S. political machine came down on Donald Trump after January 6th, tried to gaslight the whole country that Trump tried to carry out this violent insurrection, milking that day for everything it had to end his political career. To end Trump, period. That was the goal of that, right? They were telling us there was no chance, no way someone could come back after what happened on January 6th. So keep that in mind when you watch this. Biden is even more unpopular than Trump was after January 6th, which is wild. Roll the tape.
As President Biden prepares to exit the White House, President-elect Trump is making his way to Washington to take the oath of office amid a brutal cold spell due to hit the nation's capital on Monday. While Biden's approval ratings exiting office are frosty, Trump appears to be enjoying a bit of a honeymoon period. Joining us now to run the numbers on this, CNN senior data reporter Harry Inton. Hello, Harry.
Hello.
This is a pretty typical pattern, but these numbers for Biden seem especially low.
Yeah, they're historically, though, they're, I dare say, historically awful. What am I talking about here? Well, job approval at the end of the first term. I'm just looking amongst those who lost or didn't run for re-election. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to see which is the lowest number on your screen right now. And an average of polls, my average, Joe Biden's at 38%. He's actually lower than Donald Trump was at the end of his first term. Remember, at the end of his first term, everyone was saying Donald Trump's political career is over. Joe Biden's approval ratings even lower than Trump's was by just a point. He's lower than Jimmy Carter, who was at 44% by the end of his presidency. Not even close to George H.W. Bush, who was at 56%, saw a nice rebound. But the bottom line is this. Joe Biden came in to end the Donald Trump reign in this country, right? End Donald Trump's political career. And all that's ended up happening is Joe Biden has managed to end up at a lower approval rating at the end of his first term than any president on record, Jessica.
And how are people reflecting on his entire presidency at this moment?
Yeah, so if you think this approval rating number is bad, take a look at this particular number. All right, a good or great president at the end of their terms. Well, Barack Obama, 52% of Americans thought he was a good or great president at the end of his presidency, 2017. Donald Trump, very much behind Barack Obama at 36%. But look at how low Joe Biden is. My goodness gracious, you can't really get lower than 25% in our polarized era, because the bottom line is there's going to be a bunch of Democrats who would say that Biden was a good or great president no matter what he did. But yet it's only a quarter of the country who believes that Joe Biden was a good or great president. It is the lowest number since AP Nork started tracking this back at the end of Barack Obama's second term. Bottom line is Joe Biden goes out a very unpopular man at the end of a 50-plus year political career.
He's leaving office with a 25% approval rating, which means even Democrats, half of the Dems' most loyal registered Dem voters, disapprove of him. And now that he's leaving office, we're about to learn what really went on in the Oval Office. Who's really been running the government, because it sure as hell wasn't Joe Biden. And if you think that sounds crazy, which I know some of you probably do. Wait till you hear this. What Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, third in line of the presidency, just said about an incident that he witnessed firsthand a few months ago. This will shake you to your core. I'm going to play it in a minute. America's a constitutional republic. We're supposed to be governed by our selected representatives. We choose the person we want to run the country. We choose the executive. If that person's merely a puppet, the White House is orchestrating some kind of weekend at Bernie's type scenario. This isn't a republic or a democracy at all. The whole thing's a giant sham. And as bad as the Biden administration is, as bad as the Biden family is for allowing the charade to go on as long as it did, trying to gaslight us into believing Joe's healthier than a horse and can run for 4 more years. What should really bother you is why the Republican Speaker of the House, why Mike Johnson, waited until last week to tell us this. This is the Republican Speaker of the House. Why in the world would he keep this secret? He helped them perpetuate the cover-up. That's what he's admitting here. Roll the tape.
I do stand by it, and I say this without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation, and now the whole world knows it. And it's been very, very concerning to me over the last, year and a half since I've had this position.
Can you tell us a story when you say personal observation? What kind
well,
of
I
thing
mean,
did you see?
it's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked. I became Speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on. And I started requesting a meeting with the president because I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. The Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill Press Corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the Speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the Speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was. This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the Speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
If you had any trust left in Mike Johnson, it should be completely lost after this. He's been completely on board with Joe Biden for years. He completely supported Biden's Ukraine policy, approving hundreds of billions in aid to Ukraine. I lost all trust in the guy after he tried to slip the Democrats' 1,500-page omnibus bill into law last month. waiting until midnight on the day of the vote before making it public. Completely untrustworthy. And Trump knows it. It's why he's keeping Johnson on such a short leash. In another story, Trump may be changing his inauguration plans again last minute. These are unconfirmed reports, but people close to the president have been saying they may move the swearing-in to midnight tonight, and it could take place at the White House. All the chatter about Trump moving the inauguration indoors because of the weather? Not true. Not true at all. The weather may be an added benefit to moving it indoors. It's obviously more comfortable indoors than outside. But the primary reason is because of the People's March. Thousands of anti-Trump protesters are already organized, stationed outside the Capitol. There are concerns inside Trump's team that bad faith actors could try to hijack the inauguration, become violent with MAGA supporters, and turn the whole thing into some giant mess, some giant chaotic riot. The best way to prevent that is by moving it inside, which I'm happy Trump did. I just want the guy to be sworn in already, the sooner the better. One more day, folks. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.